hopefully by 2021, 2022, we're going to hear about another acquisition as well. So
yeah, more big ones. Absolutely. Thanks, Bryan. I'm going to move over to you, Michael. You're muted.
Sorry about that. Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. Very exciting. I mean, we've been building a business in rural East Africa for 10 years. And I got to say, raising capital is the #1 challenge for everybody on the continent. I mean, there's not an entrepreneur in Africa that isn't struggling to raise money right now. It's an ongoing challenge. And of course, one of the major reasons is investors don't enter if they cannot exit.
Sure. Yeah.
So, if we can have more big exits grabbing headlines, that's going to definitely attract more funding into the market. So I think every entrepreneur in Africa should be excited about this.
No, absolutely. And Martha, over to you.
Yeah, I mean, it's a huge, and it was a huge celebration for the continent as well. But I think it's also brought out some very interesting discussions in terms of founders' education and protection, because while there's a lot of startups that are coming from Africa, majority of them are not founded by Africans. So
Sure.
the funding that is going to the African continent is not really going to the, to the natives of the continent. So there's a lot of education that's needed and protection. And what we're seeing as well is government starting to step up, because like the Kenyan government created the startup regulation that requires a percentage to be held by citizens, so that
Sure.
it ensures that founders don't lose out as well. So while in a positive way, it puts the continent on a really good position, but there's also sharks that we have to be aware of, and we have to continue educating the founders and also calling these bad habits out.
No, absolutely true. Thank you, Martha. Some really good points there. I mean, we could stay on this topic for quite a while, but I want to just talk about just enablers and any challenges you find or have found with payments in Africa. So that's enablers and challenges. And I'll go to you, Michael.
Boy, the list is so long. I could talk for 2 hours on that. I mean, if you're interested specifically about technology challenges, I'm going to come back to the issue of GSM phones versus smartphones, because I think there's a common misunderstanding, even among Africans, that usage of smartphones is widespread in rural Africa. It absolutely is not. And it's still a GSM world for the vast majority of people, if they even have phones at all. And of course, the challenge with provisioning USSD at all is you have to be on the good side with MNOs. The telecom companies use their ability to deny service as an anti-competitive wedge. And so if you come to a telecom begging to have your short code provisioned, and they sniff some kind of anti-competitive business model, they'll just resist. They'll either flat out say no, or they will delay and delay and delay until your business collapses. So this type of anti-competitive behavior in the GSM space is a huge problem, because for the foreseeable future, the vast majority of African people are going to be accessing service through USSD, whether we like it or not. So we've got to address that anti-competitive behavior from the telecoms.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And Bryan, have you got anything you wanted to add to that?
In terms of that, in terms of enablers and challenges, I would just say it's a double-edged sword, right? And in terms, and what I mean is that because right now you can call it almost like the Wild Wild West, right? In terms of technology frontier. So you can, that hustle, that drive, you can kind of, the things you can kind of do, you don't have to, how do I put this? You don't have to go through a lot of like red tape, if I would say. But then if you don't have those connections, then you have to go through a lot of red tape. You know what I mean? So it's, the same thing is a double-edged sword now. So being that it's the Wild Wild West, if you have those advantages, if you have the proper backing, the proper funding and everything, and you know the right people, it's almost a hockey stick for you, right? You still have challenges with like maybe going through hoops and regulations, but you're good to go. But then if you don't have those, then it's also like a challenge for you, right? So the same thing that's a challenge can also be an enabler, right?
Sure.
That's kind of what I would add to that.
No. Yeah, completely get it. I like your analogies. And Martha?
Yeah, I think enablers, the government, a lot of governments are starting to step up. We've seen a lot of sandboxes that are driven by the government or regulators. On the other side, I think the thing that's the biggest barrier is identification, because as we move to digitalization, we have no centralized or harmonized digital ID, and that's a big limiting factor when it comes to financial inclusions or financial services. The other issue is harmonization of tech and regulation in the continent itself, because doing business in the continent and transferring money in the continent is very, very expensive, still ridiculously expensive. So that's also one of the things that I think need to be solved.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you, Martha. We've got a couple of questions here. Let's get to those because I'm conscious of time. From Raj, thank you for the question. How will WhatsApp banking and WhatsApp financial services change the landscape stroke ecosystem? If anyone wants to jump in, please do. Who's going? I'm going to pick someone otherwise. Okay, Bryan, go for it. Can you see the question?
Yeah, WhatsApp banking, WhatsApp.
Yeah.
I would say it'll change it a lot, because there's billions, millions of people on WhatsApp, right? So I think that would definitely be a game changer for the landscape and ecosystem.
Yeah.
But what you would tend to see would be, I think like most of the fintechs, most of the payment companies coming out today, even though everybody's driving for different goals, I think the major focal point for everyone, even if it's directly or indirectly, is to make sending money and doing financial services easy as sending a text message, right?
Yeah.
And so I think what WhatsApp is doing is also pushing that, right? So all the mom and pops on the streets, like people who have businesses, people in the rural areas, I think this would be a very good thing for them, right? I think what we're going to see now is once I can comfortably in my living room in Lagos or wherever can send money as fast as a text message to someone in Uganda or South Africa or wherever, regardless of whatever platform it is, I think we're gonna tend to see a change in terms of even poverty, where we're eradicating slowly poverty in the continent, right? Because that, if people now in the rural areas have access to financial services, that changes a lot. That changes their life a lot. That changes, their income. I mean, there's so much more possibilities now, right? And so I think this is a good thing for the ecosystem.
Yeah. Okay. Bryan or Martha, did you want to add anything to that question?
I think what we've seen, in the past already, because the governments are not really sure about how do you say the checks in terms of money laundering and whatnot. So I think we did see a situation in Uganda where they introduced a fee for using WhatsApp. So I think while this is going to help, not everybody has a smartphone, so not everybody will have WhatsApp. So clearly it's not going to really compete with just normal mobile money. But I do think it will bring challenges and competition with the MNOs. But I think the governments are going to, that's what I'm expecting. The governments are going to challenge the fact that WhatsApp, Facebook has a lot of user information and whatnot, and it's not properly regulated. So I think it's going to be either way. So we just wait and see.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, thank you for that, Martha and Bryan. I'm going to go on to the next question. This is for you, Michael. In Uganda, what are the challenges getting the people to use smart money, and any issues with digital marketing in rural parts?
Great, thanks, Sam, and thanks, Soju, for that question. I know it sounds very odd to have a New Yorker from Wall Street talking about rural Africa with such confidence. But it's because I have spent 10 years on the ground now in rural communities throughout Uganda and Tanzania, literally speaking with hundreds of thousands of farmers, merchants, cotton companies, school teachers. We really have gained a huge exposure to what's happening on the ground in rural communities. And we've learned some very fascinating things. I like to say to people, rural Africa is as different from urban Africa as urban Africa is from New York City. It's absolutely a different market. And if you think that an urban solution is just going to port to rural Africa without substantial change, you're in for a rude surprise, unfortunately. For example, consider this. I think with any startup, customer acquisition is the biggest challenge. Why every investor asks, what is your strategy for marketing and sales, right? Most of your investment is going to go into that. Consider this. In rural Africa, like I said earlier, most people don't have smartphones and internet. So Facebook marketing, forget about it. Television, nope, they don't have that either. Billboards on the top of mountains, not going to find them. How exactly do you create brand awareness in a remote rural village when you absolutely can't get a message out to the community? The answer is simple. It's a ground operation. You've got to figure out how to actually go to the people. The people can't come to you. They have no mobility. They walk everywhere. In Uganda, they call it futsibishi, right? That's mobility. So if you're a small startup, right, and you've got very limited funds, how exactly do you reach hundreds of thousands of rural people when you've got to move yourself and your team around on the ground? Our two biggest costs are wages to rural marketing staff and fuel to move those people around. And so you get ultra efficient at fielding these types of roadshow operations on the ground. And then, you know, even if you become exceptionally good at marketing, we in fact acquired our first 200,000 account holders in 6 months. So we have gotten very, very good at signing up accounts on the ground in a very, very difficult environment. But guess what? Nobody used our service. It was astonishing. We had 200,000 account holders and practically nobody using it.
Wow.
And then you encounter the biggest reality check of all. Nobody will use any innovation if they don't trust it. And if they don't understand it, they won't trust it. So you have to figure out not only how to do marketing, but how do you do education in an environment where people are so spread out and, you know, they have limited educational background themselves. So the learning abilities are different than they are in an urban environment. So it really ultimately becomes, how do you provide scalable education in a rural community? That is the answer to customer acquisition.
Brilliant. I hope that answers your question. Toju, thank you so much. We're going to round up, but I have a few more questions, but I know we have to round up, but I was just thinking there's two questions here. One is how you feel the pandemic has impacted payment in Africa. Has there been a surge, for example, in mobile payments due to lockdown, etc.? I guess let's answer that question, and I'll go to you, Martha.
Yeah, it depends on the industry, to be honest. It's just like with the rest of the world, depending on what industry, because if it's hospitality, hotels and whatnot, you know, there's a huge reduction on the income and revenue for the merchants. So almost no payments are taking place. But when it comes to e-commerce, or as I call it, order management, then there's an increase in that aspect as well. So it depends on which industry it is. There's, in some cases, there's more revenue, or there's more activity, and in some others there's not. So, but like the pandemic, like with every other country, it's the same globally. Yeah. So it's not just for Africa.
Yeah, no, absolutely good. Thank you, Martha. I think we've lost Bryan there. I've got one more question, Michael, to you. That's from Raj again. Thank you, Raj, for your question. Michael loved your narrative. He says, my question is even more basic. I love basic questions. How do you get money to people who don't have a phone or bank account?
Unfortunately, basic questions often don't have basic answers.
Basically, yeah.
Well, I can tell you how it's done in rural Tanzania. We started.
Yeah, please do.
10 years ago, we started working with large cotton companies, buying cotton from hundreds of thousands of rural cotton farmers spread out over vast distances. How do they pay those farmers? They have airplanes. They fly plane loads of cash over the fields. They drop bales of cash onto the ground. Guys zoom around in saloon cars with AK-47s, and they distribute the bales out to the buying stations. People bring their cotton, weigh it, and get paid. That's how it works. Enormous amount of theft, incredible inefficiency, airplanes, lots of people moving around. absolutely no transparency, no accountability. You know, what we found was a typical cotton company who was paying about $10 million in crop purchases out to farmers every year. About 15% of that 10 million is lost to payment inefficiencies. Huge opportunity there for ag value chain payments. But if you want to learn about ag value chain payments, that's another 2-hour conversation.
Yeah, we're not going to do that right now, but thank you for that, Michael. You can get all our speakers' details on the platform, so please do reach out to them if you have any other questions. I think just maybe some parting views or parting comment on what we think the future holds for payments in Africa. And I'm going to start with you, Martha.
I think we're going to see more fintechs and companies started by women.
Yeah,
we're seeing a lot of those happening already. Personalized services and products that are designed for women by women. So that's what really excites me. I think we're going to see that more and more, and the African woman is going to get more opportunities to continuously innovate and contribute to the African economies. So that's exciting to me.
Really exciting. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that, Martha. Bryan, you're back. Hello. Just some parting views before. That's okay, don't worry. Parting views before we go about just future prospects for payments in Africa.
Okay, can everyone hear me well? My thing froze. I don't know what happened.
I can see you and hear you.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, for future trends. What I think is, like I said, a lot more acquisitions. A lot more startups are going to come out. A lot more influx of foreign money because now they see that Africa is the next frontier, and all those problems that we saw as they're not problems, they're opportunities, right?
Sure.
So a lot more good news, a lot more big exits, a lot more, hopefully, a lot more IPOs. Like Jumia said, the trend, I think we're going to see more. Paystack said the trend with acquisition, again, we're going to see a lot more of that, especially in the payment sector, because there's a lot of payment startups, getting into the ground up to do that. So
that's exciting. We're going to end with you, Michael. Any parting views or thoughts?
Yeah, I echo all the comments already. I think we're at the beginning of a gold rush, honestly. I mean, if you listen to Klaus Schwab at the World Economic Forum, it's the fourth industrial revolution, great reset coming at us. The world is going digital, whether we like it or not. And I think Bryan said it right. Africa is the blue ocean, right? So this is the place to be right now. I think what you're going to start seeing, I'm going to just acknowledge Martha's earlier comment. We're going to move beyond mobile money very fast. Mobile money is a very, very limited solution. In my opinion, it's money transfer, it's remittance. But we need a lot more than that. And I think we're going to move beyond that very, very quickly. I also think there's a lot of tech-only solutions that are going to get merged and consolidated. So you are going to see, I think, foreign actors coming in, scooping up a lot of these good tech businesses like Paystack, consolidating them. And ultimately, everybody's going to come to the same realization. You got to go rural. You got to get a ground operation. You got to get good at that.
Yeah, no, brilliant. Thank you so much, Michael. Okay, we're going to round up there. Yeah, really insightful and inspiring. Thank you, Michael, Bryan, and Martha, for sharing your views there. Thank you for your questions, everyone. It was a wonderful session. Please stay tuned, everybody else who's listening to those other sessions, and to our wonderful speakers. Thank you again, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sam,
Take care.
hosting, for being a great moderator.
Oh, thanks. It was really easy. You guys are really, really easy to talk to. So thanks.
Thanks, man. Really
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye now. No worries. Bye.